It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
Well, hello there my dear viewers. I do hope you are all doing quite well today. As for me, I am out here trying to survive the perils of adulthood and the fast approaching midlife crisis that's about 5 years away. But anyway, enough about my personal battles with regrets from the past, fear for the future, and wondering if I will ever get married or even amount to anything before I turn 45. Today's video game feature is a bit of a unique one. I'm sure most people around my age, in their early to mid-30s, may remember this strange little oddity on the PS1, especially if you had a copy of one of those early PS1 demo discs. It was a simple 3D platforming puzzle game called Kula World, which featured a bouncy beach ball navigating a series of floating 3D mazes beset with traps and various collectibles which a player needed to acquire in order to complete each level. Kula World, also known as Roll Away in some regions, was developed by a company called Game Design Sweden AB, who also went on to develop the very first browser-based social gaming site called NetBaby World, which sadly went bankrupt in 2003. Think of it as a kind of precursor to what Steam and other online gaming platforms would eventually become, except that majority of the games featured on NetBaby World was developed by Game Design Sweden AB themselves, who would also later on rebrand as Playcom in the mid-90s. Now, since the recorded footage I have here of Kula World features a couple of Egyptian-inspired levels, and I usually like to showcase video games which in some way or another relate to the topics that I'm going to discuss, I figured the best topic for today's video would be that of the mystery behind the missing nose of the Great Sphinx in Egypt. I remember my late high school years in the second half of the 2000s, making the gradual transition from listening to way too much R&B and slow jams than was needed for a teenager brooding over a crush who liked one of my friends instead of me, to the more rebellious and expressive genre of hip-hop, in particular underground rap music, going so far as to attempt to write my own rhymes and embarrassing myself with either shitty raps or terrible attempts at hip-hop dancing in front of a crowd of other kids during lunch breaks. I die of cringe every single time I think back to those humiliating memories.
Hip-hop is this: 1, 2, 3, 4, hit, ah, and ah. The more relaxed you are, that's what makes it hip-hop. This is the first thing I want to say to you. You want to do hip-hop, you got to stand like this.
Around this time, I became quite the fan of a rapper named Nas. And no, I'm not talking about Lil Nas X. I'm talking about Nasir Jones, the original Nas, who in my opinion is one of the greatest rappers, or rather MCs, to ever live. I'd play an example of one of his songs, but YouTube has some pretty staunch copyright rules, and I've already been flagged by them enough times as it is. But if you're a fan of lyricism, I'll link to 3 of my favorite songs by Nas in the description below. In one of his songs called I Know I Can, which became a mainstream hit in the 2000s, there are a series of lyrics which go as follows. Egypt was the place that Alexander the Great went. He was so shocked at the mountains with black faces, shot up their nose to impose what basically still goes on today, you see.
People, you know what? Nah. That shit was ass.
Judging by these lyrics, according to my own very truthful and totally not projecting of my ideas, for my own purposes interpretation, I would wager that Nas was referring to the Great Sphinx of Egypt, which, since its rediscovery, has been missing a nose. But the question is, why?
Why? Why? Why?
And also who was responsible for the Sphinx's not so flattering facelift. Well, that, my dear viewers, is what I intend to explore with today's video, since it seems that there are quite a number of theories out there. Whilst one of the most popular tourist attractions for people visiting the mythical land of Egypt, it is estimated that the Great Sphinx is around 4,500 years old, with current Egyptologists placing it around the same time period as the reign of King Khafre, who ruled as pharaoh from the year 2575 to 2465 BC. However, there are some emerging theories that the Great Sphinx is older than the Bronze Age Egyptian dynasties, with some more extreme theories like those of Robert Schoch, Graham Hancock, and Randall Carlson, among others, believing that the Sphinx may even predate the pyramids themselves. This, however, is considered absolute blasphemy by mainstream Egyptologists because modern science is not as open-minded as it claims to be, while also pointing fingers at religion for being too dogmatic. But what do I know? I'm not an archaeologist. I'm just here regurgitating information I found on the internet for a quick buck, because
Only money that I want.
And to hurt people?
Yeah, the people, I will show you with your last bond. If you don't want to give me a man, I will show you with your last bond.
regardless of what the supposed true age of the Sphinx is, we can all agree that it is quite odd that none of us have any memory of it ever having a nose, at least in modern times. So why doesn't the Sphinx have a nose? Well, my younger teenage self initially believed everything that my favorite rapper Nas was saying was true, that it was destroyed by Alexander the Great during his military conquest into Egypt and the expansion of the short-lived Macedonian Empire. I would later find out that just like me, a lot of rappers who regard themselves as being deep are often also only regurgitating information the same way I do.
The family's sick and dying. Could you spare a few coins? I need food. I'm so hungry. Just a little money, I beg of you. A few coins. All I ask for is but a few coins. But I need money, sir. I'm poor and sick and hungry. No, please, don't leave like this. Just a few coins, please. A few coins. All I ask for is but a few coins.
Quick disclaimer, I only use Wikipedia if I can't find enough information on a given topic anywhere else. Other than that, I try to use other sources of information, which I always link to at the bottom of the video. Let me just put that out there before any of these comment trolls come at me with, "Oh my gosh, you use Wikipedia?" and start calling me a shill or something.
Wikipedia? Using Wikipedia as your source of information?
I am a sinner. I'm a sinner. Say it louder. I am a sinner.
I am a sinner.
Louder, Daniel. I am a sinner.
I am a sinner.
I am sorry, Lord.
I am sorry, Lord.
For the games though, yes, I always use Wikipedia because I mean, who needs an entire Oxford peer-reviewed thesis about a game where you play as a beach ball that collects fruit? But anyway, back to the topic at hand. One of the prevailing theories that have circulated for quite some time is that the great little Frenchman named Napoleon Bonaparte was the culprit behind the missing nose of the Sphinx, with debate centered around whether he did it on purpose to assert his colonial dominance over Egypt or whether it was by accident due to a stray cannonball missing its intended target and ruining the handsome face of the Sphinx during one of the many battles during the French military campaigns in Egypt around the year 1798. However, it was later discovered that this theory, or rather myth, or rather even blatant bullshit lie, was completely false, since there are sketches and drawings by a Danish naval captain and explorer named Frederick Louis Norden of the Sphinx without a nose that date back to the year 1731, which is a whole 61 years before Napoleon even set foot on the continent of Africa. In fact, Napoleon had not even been born yet either, with his recorded birth date being 1769. So no, my dear viewers, the Sphinx's nose was not destroyed due to some Eurocentric colonial sense of superiority. However, Napoleon did stand before the Sphinx and admire its greatness and expert craftsmanship, stating that thousands of years of history are looking down upon us. Not to mention that the battle attributed to his armies wherein they destroyed the nose of the Sphinx didn't even happen in the area of the Great Pyramids or the Sphinx itself, but rather took place in a region called Imbaba, which is 10 miles north of the Giza Plateau where the Sphinx and pyramids are located. So either Napoleon's armies had the most advanced cannon of its time that could fire a single shot across 10 miles or roughly 16 kilometers, or the entire story is a bunch of horseshit. Another theory that had circulated for some time, which many scholars and Egyptologists still hold to, is that the nose was purposefully removed by a Sufi Muslim devotee named Muhammad Sa'im al-Dakhir in 1378 AD, or at least this is according to an Egyptian Arab scholar and historian named al-Makrizi, who wrote about the incident in the 15th century, which is almost like over 100 to 200 years later. Maybe he heard it from a friend of his, who heard it from their father, who heard it from their grandfather, who heard it from their great-grandfather, who heard it from a guy who knew another guy who was actually there when it happened. Supposedly, Muhammad Sa'im al-Dakhir was quite upset at the fact that some local peasants were making offerings and prayers towards the Great Sphinx in hopes that it would ease the floods that had ravaged nearby towns and farmlands. Yes, I know Egypt is a desert, but that doesn't mean it never rains there. Also, forgive me for my terrible Arabic pronunciations. I don't speak the language. Due to the fact that worship of false gods is a big no-no in all three Abrahamic religions, Muhammad Sa'im al-Dakhir ordered the face of the Sphinx to be desecrated in order to discourage the peasants from worshipping it. So his devout team of anti-Sphinxists got to work with a few hammers and chisels, and thus our Chad lad Sphinx ended up without a nose, ruining its ever so handsome appearance for centuries after. Maybe the reason the peasants began worshipping it is because it was probably just so damn good looking.
冗談ですよ。お客さん困っちゃうな、もう。
何がおかしいんだよ。
っていう、なんかユーモアっていうんですかね。
ユーモア。
あ、そうです。そのユーモアですよ。ユーモア。いやもう真に受けないでくださいよ、もう本当に。
何がユーモアだこの野郎。
According to some researchers, there is evidence that the nose was removed by use of tools like hammers and chisels, as mentioned previously. However, according to historian Bassam al-Shamar and a few other scholars, the Sphinx missing a nose could most likely also be down to a more mundane and less exciting reason. I mean, that is unless you find water erosion and weather damage exciting, which if you do, you're a weirdo. But yes, the final alleged culprit of the missing nose of the Sphinx would be Mother Nature herself, with many scholars, geologists and historians also claiming that the damaged area does indeed show just simple signs of erosion or damage done by natural causes, which resulted in big old Sphinx's nose to simply crumble to dust. The nose also isn't the only part of the Sphinx that's missing, since many ancient depictions of the lion-human hybrid chimera thing show that the Sphinx once had a crown due to evidence of holes on the top of its head, as well as a ceremonial pharaoh's beard which may have fallen off at a much earlier date. These all point to the fact that the Sphinx may have been a representation of the pharaoh's power and majesty in ancient Egypt, but that it was also believed to be some kind of spiritual guardian, hence why aside from the Great Sphinx near the pyramids, they are also featured throughout ancient Egyptian mythology, art, hieroglyphs and temples, such as Sphinx Alley in Upper Egypt, which is a 2-mile avenue lined with Sphinx statues that connects the Luxor and Karnak temples. Sphinxes are also not exclusive to Egypt either, since they also feature in ancient Greek, Mesopotamian, Indian and even Thai mythology, just to mention a few. Well, there you have it folks, that is how the Sphinx turned into Michael Jackson. I mean, how it lost its nose. I really do hope you all found this video interesting and informative as well as entertaining. I do apologize for the way my voice sounds, since at the time of this recording, I kinda lost my voice due to a prolonged bout of rage screaming that happened while I was trying to scam call someone who ended up redeeming when I told them not to redeem. Life is indeed extremely tough out here for me to have stooped so low.
Hey you bitch! Hey. Do you listen to me? Do you listen to me?
Hey, I'm gonna take $100. I'm taking $100 away from you. I told you not to use that language around me. Okay?
Do not redeem! Do not redeem! Do not redeem the card!
What?
Do not redeem the cards!
Yes, I'm redeeming the cards. I'm redeeming the cards.
No!
Okay?
No! No, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no!
Anyway, that's it from me for this week. Do stay tuned for more future episodes every Friday of me, your favorite pixelated professor, the 8-bit academic. And if you would like to show your support, please don't hesitate to give me a like, subscribe, bell button, comment, share, sell your soul to me, and give me all your personal belongings so that this humble channel may grow and I can spread my voice and wisdom across the vastness of the internet, that others may join this ever-growing cult. I mean channel. Until next time, peace.
So please, whatever. Please, I want to reach 1 million likes.